Okay. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. We are doing this hybrid, so if you see me talking over here, there's a couple people joining on Zoom, so not great. But my name is Rose Clark. I'm the Ag Program Coordinator here at CCE-Chautauqua. How many of you have attended LEAF classes before? Okay, a lot, but some of you are new. That's awesome. Thank you for coming. So LEAF is our effort to build ag education specifically for adults. We see this, Ginny described it in a way I really liked, as an incubator for future farmers or for people interested in ag, getting to know all that goes into agriculture and farming. So we have a pretty wide array of topics, including one of my special passions, which is knitting and local wool. So I'm glad to see that you all were as excited as I am about this. How many of you are knitters? Okay, yeah, even a little bit is good. If you've picked up needles and tried and kind of made something, even if it's like a shapeless object, that's okay too. So like half and half. So after our presentation, what we'll do in the room is we'll bring a couple tables together, so it's more of like a circle that we can help each other. And I've got some wool here that Sharon helps to wind, and you can dive in and start practicing. So figure out how to adjust. Okay. So I think I mentioned to you, Heather, that I taught myself how to knit when I was a junior in high school. And I did it by watching YouTube videos because I decided that one year for Christmas, I wanted to make all my friends and family either a scarf or a hula hoop. And I would let them choose what they wanted. And so I learned that year, I learned how to make hula hoops and I learned how to knit. But a few years later, I had made a few things for my mom and for my friends. And then I got a job at a yarn store because I was working as an educator in the spring and fall, but during the summer I needed a job. So that summer I got a job at a yarn store in Portland, Oregon, where I grew up. And they taught me that I had been knitting wrong. Right? So YouTube is a wonderful resource, that's the lesson, but you also want to have people on the ground who can check you. I started with acrylic yarn because it's really easy to get and it's really cute. And they have some very soft, nice, squishy ones. But as soon as I learned about wool and all the amazing properties that it has, I was hooked. I also love to squish it, and it has more texture than acrylic yarn, which I find really satisfying. So my husband, who also knits, we go back and forth. He is totally willing to use the acrylic yarn that we have, but I don't find it worth it for my time when I'm making an effort to make something. I prefer to always use wool now, and so I just declare myself a yarn snob because I appreciate acrylic for what it is, but I prefer not to use it myself. So do any of you have preferences in what fiber you use? What have you used before? Acrylic, yeah. It's the easiest to get. It's nice when you're new, yeah. What? Which is typically affordable. Yes, and it's more affordable for sure. Definitely. So acrylic is petroleum based. It's a type of plastic that it's pretty amazing. They're able to spin it into a fiber. And same with polyester and nylon, although we get into like using cellulose in like rayon. So there's some cool variations that have gone into making different fibers. People have been using fibers for, thousands, millions of years, however long you track it, to make rope and to make clothing and other things. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today are animal-based, specifically sheep's wool. And this, let's see, it's over here. When we break, you also look at, I brought some of the books, but this is one of my favorite books that Matt got me one year for Easter, called the Fleece and Fiber Source Book, and it talks about all different varieties of sheep and alpaca and other animals and kind of what their properties are and how they spin and what that looks like. So highly recommend this book. We're not going to talk as much today about cotton and linen and hemp. This is a linen shirt I made, which is really nice. But as far as I know, no one's making it here. Is that true? Anyone know of cotton or linen?
What about bamboo? Maybe plant-based?
Yes, yeah, that's plant-based, yes. Bamboo yarn can be really nice and soft. That's what I say, that's why I say, one thing I really enjoy about knitting and about yarn is the texture. Like they have really nice feels. So wool is amazing. If you zoom in on it, it has these things. Does anyone know what these are called? They're called scales, like a lizard, right? So they have these scales, and that is kind of the key of what makes them so insulating, water resistant. It's amazing. It increases the surface area. Inside the actual fiber, there's also a lot going on that lends it to all of its properties, right? It's durable. It has to keep the sheep cool in the summer. What kind of sheep do you have?
They are Chautauqua Hampshires. Not great for wool. They're you can, but my understanding is worse. And try to do much with it.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I have to experiment, I give it to you for free.
I just realized, sorry, I think that I'm not sharing. Okay, that's fine. I just realized I'm not sharing my screen with you. So I will pull that up. Okay. Should be able to see that.
I can see it. It's great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I also, when we're making this, I read it in an article, I had not known that this was one of the properties, but it has UV protection. It's actually, they've done studies, and like multiple studies have shown that wool has better UV protection than other fibers like cotton and it's also more fire resistant. So in previous decades, there was a lot more in our homes that was made of wool. Wool can be used as like stuffing. It can be used for all sorts of things, rugs. And studies have shown that our homes, when they were made of more natural materials, they burned slower. If you did have a house fire, your house actually burned several minutes slower than they do today. Simply because things like wool and dense wood, like old growth wood, and other things, they burn a lot slower. There's less air moving around. And so, you know, when you're thinking about what you're putting on your body, something that's wool, if you were to fire, please don't, but it wouldn't harm you as quickly as something that is plastic and melts too. So all these things. Any questions so far? Am I selling you on wool? Good question. Yes. Oh, so that's, I didn't talk about the cons. Wool has a reputation of being scratchy. And definitely some of the coarser it is, the more scales it has, the itchier it is, especially for someone with sensitive skin. So that's for sure an issue. And, you know, my son has a hard time wearing like this hat. He doesn't like it because he says, Mom, it's too scratchy. There are other fibers, different varieties of sheep, like merino is this fine wool, so it has less of those scales. And something like alpaca, which this is an alpaca silk, and it's very soft. There might still be people who are sensitive to it, and so you just kind of have to see what feels good for you, but there are options.
And how readily
It's a great question. I don't know of any sources in the area. Does anyone else know of any cashmere? My understanding is that cashmere is from goats, right? Mostly goat fiber. And I don't know of any fiber goats around here. So there's also, I didn't put this in the slide, but I can get you information after. There's fiber festivals. So there's an annual fiber festival in East Aurora, I think. Has anyone been to that?
There's one of the new markets, that's where I've been.
Okay.
And I did find some cashmere up here.
Okay, so fiber festivals are awesome. They're really fun events where a lot of different fiber producers and dyers come together, and you can buy raw fleeces if you want to do the whole process. You can buy spun yarn, and you can find different varieties. People come from all over. So
Hemlock is the north end of Hemlock Lake, which is, I think it's the first thing. My mom used to go with some friends who like, when they go to this, like buy yarn and like knit all weekend.
Yeah.
It was like a week, like 2 or 3 days.
that sounds amazing.
And all she would do was just, there's knitting conventions. Yeah, yeah, and it was somewhere, I think that's, is it one big one? Yeah.
It seems like the Finger Lakes has a lot of fiber stuff going on. So
Fiber festival.
yeah, fiber festival.
The one in Hemlock is usually, I think it's the last weekend in September. Okay, 25th or something. Okay. And that's wonderful when you have all the animals there too.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
We took my son to one in Oregon, and yeah, it was so fun. It's like the county fair, you know, but just everything is fiber. So we talked about how affordable acrylic yarn is, right? It's easy to get. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at almost anywhere. A lot of times people are giving it away for free because they have so much of it. It's not a big cost, right? But if you are really investing in what you're making, knitting takes a lot of time, at least for me. So if you're really investing in what you're making and you think about all that goes into making yarn and making wool, it really is amazing that it costs so little. So number one is raising happy, healthy sheep and animals. That's not to be discounted. Shearing them, you have to do it at the right time. It's really hard to get shearers, is my understanding. I was looking into like holding some leaf workshops on shearing, and there's just not a lot of people that do it. It's really hard work. You have to shear your sheep, even though, yeah. And sometimes you might not keep it clean enough to turn into wool yarn, but you can use it for other things like mulch or laying down on these muddy days as like a path so that the mud is stopped, right? If you have extra wool, it's a lot of things. Washing, that's where you are rinsing out the lanolin from the fibers. The lanolin is great, but it's really oily. If you touch a raw fleece, it's really, really oily and kind of gross. Needs to be washed. You pick out all the vegetative matter and everything that's gotten in there. And then at any point in these steps, you can dye it if you're doing that. Carding is where you kind of mechanically separate it. You use these combs and you use other drums, other tools. My predecessor, Cassie, had some awesome leaf classes on processing wool last year. Did any of you come to those? No, it sounded really great. And Vicky from the Tie-Bout House where I got this wool, she led those. So if that's something you're interested in, we can do another series on that because it sounds really neat. Spinning, I've dabbled in drop spindles, but there's all sorts of spinning wheels that you can get into. And then plying, which is spinning it again once you've spun it once. So with all of that in mind, now you understand why local wool costs what it does. But you know that you're getting a great product at the end of it. Any questions? This is a map that Vicki I asked her where, if you have animals, where do you send your wool? Where do you send your fleeces to be milled? And she told me 4 in Pennsylvania and New York that she knows of. I'm sure there might be more, But overall, a lot of mills over the last 100 years have closed just because there's not the demand. Some of them are popping up again. But it is really hard just simply to find a place to do all this processing. That's another reason why it's not the most common. Any questions from you, Faith, online?
No, I'm enjoying every bit of it. I'm just listening. It's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so where do you get local yarn, get local fiber? There is a New York Fiber Trail, but if you click on it, there's nothing in our portion of the state. So we're hoping to change that. I've talked with Emily, our executive director, about one of the programs that I manage is Chautauqua Grown, which is like a local food, local farm label. We'd love to have a Chautauqua Grown fiber trail. So like all the places where you can buy local fiber or local dyers and things like that. So what I did buy this yarn at Ginny's farm store. Where did this come from?
Rainbow Yarn Company.
Rainbow Yarn Company. Okay, great. So that's the same as this one. So Ginny has some at her store. Biodome sometimes has it. Has anyone been there downtown Jamestown? Yeah. Alpacaville, I wasn't able to get in touch with them, but they have a nice little kind of call it
A little
shed. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little shop in
Yeah.
a shed.
I was just there with my grandson in the fall.
Does anyone else? Oh, what was that?
I was just there with my grandson in the fall, so nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's adorable
Mhm.
and friendly.
Yeah, I was last there 2 years ago, but yeah, she's really welcoming. Once you come and see the alpacas and keep them. Does anyone else know of anywhere to get local yarn?
The Western Arts and Crafts Show in
Okay.
June or July.
Yeah.
There's a woman who bought out an alpaca farm in Pennsylvania. It's not too far away.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it, but she sets up every year and has the alpaca. She's had alpaca yarn. Mostly she carries finished products like packet cakes and hats and whatever. Because people aren't buying them. But they're alpaca yarns. I think they also have one of the it's a wild September.
In one.
They have, it's like as soon as you enter through the front, like what you install and fill it down right next to that. And then it don't have that. That's the meaning of that. Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so it's sounding like more alpaca than sheep's wool around here. Okay. In Little Valley.
Yeah,
Okay.
go straight down. And it's on the right hand side of the Google.
Nice. Cool. Awesome, thank you. 'Cause I'm, as I said, I'm from Oregon. I'm not originally from here, so I'm kind of piecing together my knowledge of the area. So all of this that we're gonna use today, I got at the Tie-Bout House in Warren, which is a wonderful little shop. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from, I think, 10 or 11 till 5. And Vicky, who owns it, does have sheep of her own. She has Shetland sheep and she has a farm in Corey, Pennsylvania. So she didn't have any of her own in stock when I went in on Saturday, but this is Rainbow Yarn Company. This is a dyer in Jamestown, and this wool is not dyed, but this is from Fox and Hound Merino, which is also what I used for the white of these mittens. They're in Randolph. So that's one local place. Black oak wool is from Dundee and the Finger Lakes. We've got a couple skeins of that today. Little Bear Creek alpaca. This nice squishy stuff, and they're in Cade, Pennsylvania. Also go to the Laughing Owl Press Company. It's amazing. It's really cool. They have like an old fashioned printing press. They make cards and things. They also have lots of gifts. It's great. Paint is awesome. And then I already mentioned rainbow yarn. So we have more options than you might think. There's a lot going on, and I hope that kind of as people are rediscovering what is awesome about wool and about alpaca, that there might be more awareness. Okay, so now is the exciting part. This is why you're here. We're gonna knit. But does anyone see what's wrong with this picture? It's crocheting. Thank you. That's my biggest pet peeve. Not my biggest pet peeve. It's super harmless. But when people are like, "Oh, are you crocheting?" and I'm like, "No, I'm knitting," because they look super different.
Actually, it's not on the news, it's on the Facebook.
I'll have to look for the frame.
Yeah,
Too many
yeah. they told me that.
disgusting serial killing.
Yeah, Jessica invited me to the group.
So one of the distinctive things about knitting,
Yeah.
often you will
They have a
see
list of all
kind
the
of a
bodies
V
that
shape
many?
whoever is monitoring this, some civilians.
or some bars. Sorry. A V shape if it's what's called stockinette, which is where your knit side is on every side. Hard to see, but these are little V's. Or if you're doing garter stitch, it makes these distinctive bars where the pearls are. So the two words that you need to know when you leave here are knit and purl. Those are the two main stitches of knitting. It's really not as complicated as a lot of people make it out to be. Where to find patterns? Ravelry.com is my favorite resource for patterns. It's got knit patterns and crochet patterns. It's awesome. There's a lot of free stuff you can find. You can also see what other people made, which I find really helpful because sometimes it looks great when it comes from a designer, but when actual people make it, it does not turn out the same. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of like social media for fiber arts. The pattern that we're doing today is from Tin Can Knits, which is another really awesome site. They have a lot of free patterns, including a whole collection called the Simple Knit Collection or something like that. And this that we're doing today is #1 in their Simple collection. Pearl Soho, it has amazing videos, like tutorials. So recommend them for if you get stuck on anything or you don't know what something means, because when you're reading a pattern, it is like learning a new language. Don't be discouraged because it's a lot for your brain to process and to learn what each of these things mean. And then libraries have a lot of knitting and crochet pattern books as well. Don't forget that. And then, let's see. I am going to jump through because Faith, I'm kind of done with the presentation portion. But I wanted to highlight a couple things before, if you choose to leave, that's okay. Or if you want to stay on and I can help you virtually. I'm not quite sure. We can be creative. But I wanted to give a few other resources first. So this is my daughter in a knit sweater this morning. So she's enjoying her knitwear. There's some local knit groups and support places. Miles is my friend back here with the spinning wheel that they brought, which is amazing. They go to the Pendergrass Library Crafting and Community on Thursdays. Is that right? Hideout House has knit over coffee on Fridays. And then Sharon was telling me that there's this great knitting guild at Bethel Lutheran Church on Saturdays. So almost half your week you could be knitting if you choose to go to all of these. Does anyone else know of any other groups or crafts?
I got found out in Mayville, 2 to 4 on Thursdays.
In Mayville, 2 to 4 Thursdays. Awesome. So we will not get through the pattern today. We'll get started. And then I'm happy to help if you have questions come up, or you're welcome to go to these places. And I'm positive that there are people there who will help you if you have questions.
The waterways is just the second thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, great. I'll change that on my slide. Thank you. If you want to make a note in your slides. I did put it in there, but we might maybe make a note second Saturday. My friend Janet also wanted me to share that there are outlets for your knitted items. Once you've made something, if you want to get into community knitting, this is an awesome movement to kind of share what you're making. So there are these things around town, you might have seen them. I know there's one by Tops in Falconer. They're called warm lines, where people put their finished knit items to share, right? It's available for anyone in these bags. Long-term care facilities sometimes need lap robes or comfort shawls or cancer hats. So they have people who can use your lovingly made things. Maternity wards and women's centers, now we do baby hats and blankets. And animal shelters might take items for kind of comfort for their beds. So, yeah.
I'll also use, for everybody. Fully finalized, but she does. And she is single mother of 5. She does it in spare time and is always collecting. Blankets, hats, gloves, scarves.
I think that we actually really have to get that really. But you can't mail them directly to them. I get to bring your phone things to donate. So I have a 30-ish hat
She goes down to.
that I have to find a home for.
Oh, yeah.
She goes to the baby center once a month. Benefits for kids.
Yeah.
And about like
Yeah, I think she'll get one of your cards.
part of food and like warmer and stuff like that. And she doesn't have the money, the resources to do it herself, so she relies on.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's nice that she's received items to share, that she is the one that facilitates it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Well, she doesn't feel it, she just does it.
She just does it.
So